702 in conversation with DigiCloud Africa. Thinking Google Cloud? Think DigiCloud Africa.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
21 minutes past 5. Well, in the aftermath of a terrible bus accident earlier this week out in Ekurhuleni, I was referring to that a little bit earlier. 12 people died at the scene and 4 others died later in various. In fact, the death toll was finally confirmed at 13. Just to be absolutely precise about that. So much conversation and so much of it familiar about death on our roads, particularly where large vehicles like buses are involved. Somehow, though, not much being said about the technology that is available and out there that could be used to monitor driver fatigue, monitor driver performance, and a number of other things. And we were prompted to do this by an excellent voice note we received, and we've decided to follow up on that story. Our guest is Clay Colgate. He's Chief Business Development Officer for a company called Optix that actually is involved very much so in this space. Mr. Colgate, welcome, and thanks very much for giving us your time. What kind of technology is out there that could be used to make buses safer? Give us a brief tour of that, if you will, please.
Great, John. Thank you so much for having me on. And firstly, before we start, our heartfelt sympathy and condolences go out to all the families that were impacted by these terrible incidents this week. I think, John, you touched on it in terms of technology as an enabler to improve upon road safety in the South African context. I think the truth is there's a lot of technology available on the market today, not only for buses but for all commercial vehicles, that really look at how do we identify and analyze the true root cause behaviors that are leading to these accidents and incidents. Knowing about the incident after the fact is a so what. There's always a reason for these things. And the reason is root cause driver behavior. So technology really as an enabler to identify those things and try and get ahead of it in an effort to avoid collisions from happening as an end result.
So they could monitor what kinds of things? For example, if drivers are getting a little bit tired and I'd be the first to say I've driven when I've been feeling tired and I can feel my ability to drive well is substantially diminished. Is it that kind of monitoring that you can do? And crucially, does the monitoring allow outside intervention? In other words, not necessarily just alerting a driver, but somebody who's running a fleet, picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Dave, take a rest. You're starting to go all over the place."
Yes, absolutely, John. So, looking at fatigue is really a symptom. It's not a choice that drivers make. No one gets behind the wheel today and says, you know what, I'm going to fall asleep when I get around the corner.
Yes.
So the truth is we need to give drivers a fighting chance and give them that first line of defense in the vehicle to keep them awake in that critical moment. So it's about using, yes, audible and visual alerts, but more importantly, sensory feedback to the driver to alert them in that critical moment to keep them awake. And then thereafter, it's about how do we highlight this to the fleet operator to say, you know what, John's falling asleep right now. Let's together do something about that and make sure that he stops and has a rest. The data that comes as a result of that is really impactful because not only do fleet operators know when fatigue occurs, but they can also start hot-spotting fatigue incidents as they occur during different seasonality or times of the day or day of the week and try and get ahead of these things as opposed to routing the vehicle down the road of risk and routing around the risk to avoid it.
So, are there other kinds of functionality? For example, if you monitor my behavior, let's say I'm driving buses during peak time, I might be that guy who maybe goes a little bit too fast, maybe drives too close to the vehicles in front of me. Presumably, there's tech A that can capture that, but tech B that allows for some kind of intervention, either by way of giving me feedback and disciplining me if necessary, or communicating with me live.
Yeah, definitely, John. So I think from an identification perspective, there are technologies out there that don't only look at, fatigue as a single source of risk, but looks at multiple factors of behavioral risk within a vehicle. And that comes in different forms. So it comes in the form of objects that are associated to a risk factor while people are driving. So an example of that is, a driver drinking water while driving may not be severely risky. But
Yes.
a driver drinking water with their eyes pointed towards the road, that becomes a problem. So you need to correct that person's attention in real time to get their eyes back to where it needs to be. And then similarly, giving that person a fighting chance when the vehicle is in front of you is too close, and just giving them a gentle reminder or an alert to say you need to increase the distance between you and the vehicle in front, because now the time to impact is so low that you would not be able to react to that. So it's a combination of things that are able to be identified. But the truth is, John, the magic is not just in that and in the technology. The magic comes in is really by humanizing our approach and understanding that there's a human being behind the wheel. So how do we engage and empower that individual to the proper remedial action or training or incentivization, to promote positive behavior in a vehicle, because then we see and we realize the biggest impact and the most effective results over time.
Thank you so much. We need to spend more time on this, but a good start, I think. Clay Colgate, Chief Business Development Officer for Optix. If you're involved in the bus transport business, have you added any of this kind of functionality to your fleet? And maybe you've encountered resistance. If there's a story there to share, we'd like to hear it. 072 702 1702, 27 minutes past 5.